Gentlemen, thank you for being here. My name is Tim Chase. I'm the camp commander for Lieutenant Ezra S. Griffin, camp number 8, Sons of Union Veterans. Like I said, thank you for being here. We're going to get our program started. We're going to start with saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So if the color guard would please step forward. I'm going to ask Katrina Branis and William Dixon to come forward and lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to ask our chaplain, Paul Rogan, to give the benediction.
Good morning, everybody. At this time, I'd like to ask any gentleman in the crowd if you kindly remove your hats. Thank you. Almighty God, we gather today on this Memorial Day, a day of remembrance for those who served and sacrificed in the Civil War. We remember the men of the Grand Army of the Republic, the comrades who fought bravely for our nation's unity. We are grateful for their courage, their dedication, and their willingness to lay down their lives for the cause of freedom and union. May their sacrifices never be forgotten, and may their spirit of patriotism continue to inspire us. We pray for peace in our nation and throughout the world. Bless the families of those who served and died, and comfort them in their grief. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we strive to build a better future for all. Amen.
Thank you, Paul. Today, camp is celebrating its 126th observance of Memorial Day. 157 years ago, the commander of the JAR gave the order for Memorial Day. And I think it's very fitting that as we approach the 250th anniversary of the birth of our country, that we remember all the men and women who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. As Lincoln would say in the Gettysburg Address, the last full measure of devotion, and that we remember them and thank them for their sacrifice. I'm going to call up camp member Mark Myers, and he's going to play a musical selection.
Good morning. During the Civil War, music was such an important part of the soldiers' lives. Whether around campfires or on the march, military bands, soldier would experience pride and feel very proud and think of home and family or their country. Today I'm going to share 3 songs of the Civil War to you that these men lying underground were the first to hear these songs. The 3 songs are a medley of songs common to soldiers of that time. I'm going to start with Tenting on the Old Campground by Walter Kittredge and by the great George Further group, Tramp, 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 and I'll finish with the Battle Cry of Freedom.
Now I'm going to invite Millie Rechick up from the Ladies Auxiliary. She's going to give you some greetings and the reading of Logan's orders and the spreading of flowers.
Good morning. Welcome to our Memorial Day celebration. I represent Auxiliary 10 of the Sons of the Union Veterans. We are closely related to the Sons of the Union Veterans and the Sons of the Civil War. We strive to assist all that we do and keep the memory alive of those soldiers and sailors that were lost during that great battle. Today we honor and remember our deceased members by strewing flowers, rose petals, and such onto the graves in order to decorate them. In fact, it was kind of the beginning of Decoration Day after the Civil War. So after you hear Logan's orders that will be read next by Julie, we will ask all the children that are here to please come up and take a basket and help us decorate those precious graves. Thank you so much for being here.
General John A. Logan's orders, Memorial Day order, number 11, headquarters, Grand Army of the Republic, Washington, D.C., May 5th, 1868. The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet, churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form or ceremony is prescribed, but posts and comrades will, in their own way, arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. We are organized comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind of fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foe. Their soldier lives were the reveille of freedom to a race in chains. Their graves with sacrifice, with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and found mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remain in us. Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with the choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude. The soldiers and sailors, widow and orphan. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope it will be kept up from year to year, while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to call attention to the order and lend its friendly aid in bringing it to the notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therewith. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. Command of John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief, N.P. Chipman, Adjutant General.
my privilege to introduce our guest speaker, Nick Petula, who will be speaking to us about Lieutenant Ezra S. Griffin, who is the namesake for our camp and who is actually buried here in the cemetery. Nick?
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. We're all here to honor all of the departed veterans, all of the current veterans, all the people, men and women that have served this country. It's often forgotten anymore about the sacrifices and not only of the men themselves, the men and women, but of their families. So we want to take a moment today to just remember all the people that have served, but especially the people that are buried here, and most especially the members of the Civil War that lie all around us. I would especially like to take a few moments to speak of Ezra Griffin. I call him a forgotten hero. He lies buried not far from here, right over in that area there. He was born in Providence in 1835. He was a member of the Griffin family, a pioneer family that was going to be farmers, later invested in coal industry and things like that. We don't know a lot about his early life, but we do know that he was very patriotic, very articulate. When the war broke out, he joined the local 143rd Regiment that was organized in the Lackawanna Valley. They went off to serve in the Federal Army. They arrived outside of Washington, D.C. in 1862, late in 1862. And from there, they set up camp. By the spring of 1863, they were involved in numerous skirmishes with the Confederate forces in Northern Virginia. In their first major battle, it was a very major battle, Chancellorsville, Virginia, Ezra was going to see his first major combat. He was a first lieutenant in the regiment. He was going to prove to be a very valiant soldier. We have letters, we have diaries from Ezra in which he expresses his patriotism. Many of these men who lie here now are forgotten. Ezra was forgotten. Many of their contributions, many of their sacrifices have been forgotten. We tend not to think of them as real people, but just as some images of the past. But these were real, living men with passions. Many of his letters expressed his extreme patriotism and his dedication to the Union. He was going to be involved in, as we said, numerous actions, culminating in the Great Battle of Gettysburg in July of 1863. In that battle, the 143rd, made up mostly of men from Luzerne and Lackawanna County, all Luzerne County at that time. The regiment was going to suffer 54% casualties, killed, wounded, missing in action. They were decimated. After that battle, they were going to be assigned in the pursuit of General Lee into Northern Virginia. There, they were going to be faced with numerous obstacles, numerous skirmishes, all kinds of difficult weather conditions, all kinds of problems with their health, with supplies. Eventually, Ezra was going to become infected with malaria. He was going to suffer greatly. He was not going to be able to really ever regain his health. At this time, he was in his late 20s. He was going to witness some pretty important events throughout his Army career. He was going to shake hands with President Lincoln at a review. He was also going to see many of the top generals of the war. He was certainly a witness to the history of the Civil War. He saw Grant, he saw General Hooker, he saw many of the main personalities, and he certainly was an integral part of the story of the fight to save the Union. In the winter of 1863-1864, the unit was going to be basically in winter camp. He was going to, at that time, write home quite a bit. He was going to be very involved in the coal mining interests of the area. Many of his letters reflect his interest in what was going on at home. He did not write a lot about what was happening to him, but in his diary he did mention many of the instances of patriotism, of sacrifice, of death from disease, from the weather, of the men of this valley. As I said, many of them are buried here. If you look at some of the monuments here, you can see that they are from the 143rd. At the Battle of Gettysburg, we should mention, there was a close friend of Ezra. His name was Benjamin Griffin. He was also from Providence. And during that battle, he was going to become famous during an incident in which a rebel colonel was trying to take the battle flag of the Union forces. Griffin was going to rush forward, grab the flag, knock down the rebel colonel, and defiantly shake his hand, his fist, at all of the rebel forces. before, unfortunately, being cut down. He was a close personal friend of Ezra Griffin. Actually, he was a witness to a will that Griffin had made sometime before the battle. After the battle, Griffin's body was never recovered, along with many of the other men who were lost in the turmoil of the aftermath of the battle. Today at Gettysburg, there is a statue and a monument to the 143rd Regiment of Reverend Gettysburg. Make sure you take a chance to look at it. And it depicts him shaking his fist at the enemy. In the spring of 1864, the 143rd continued in minor skirmishes with the Confederate forces until they finally were before Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy. A siege was being laid by the Union Army at Petersburg, Virginia. In June of 1864, the 143rd was going to be engaged in a huge attack against the Confederate entrenchments. On June the 17th, 1864, along with his regiment, Ezra Griffin was going to be part of a charge across a field against the rebel forces. During that battle, he was hit by a Confederate shell and fell. Captain Blair, another officer of the regiment, saw him fall and later said that in the heat of the battle, he wished he had been able to go to his friend and assist him. But because of the turmoil and the terrible effects of the battle, he could not. He later said to the family that he had seen him injured, but hopefully he was not injured terribly. After the battle, Griffin was taken to a hospital in Annapolis, Maryland. The wound had been to his leg and did not seem at first serious, but he had been worn down by the malaria, worn down by the terrible suffering he had suffered all during the campaigns, and he had been in a debilitated state. Apparently an infection set in. He lingered for about a month. His family from Scranton was able to go down. They were able to nurse him. They were able to be with him. They had hopes. Periodically, they wrote home that it looked like he was getting a little better. But on July 11th, 1864, his brother, D.W., was going to write home to his wife, "It looks as though Ezra is sinking. I will advise you if there is going to be any changes." That letter, which I have a copy of, he then added a P.S. "Tell Mother Ezra died today at 1 p.m. It was like a going to sleep." Ezra was then returned to Scranton. He was buried at the Griffin Cemetery on Main Avenue, near the fire station. That cemetery is now pretty much abandoned. In the 1870s, there were a series of mine caves in that area, and it was decided to move many of the bodies here to the Dunmore Cemetery. And in 1874, Ezra was removed to the area that's right over there. He has a magnificent monument. If you get a chance when it's over, you might want to stop, take a look. And he's been there, of course, all these many years. Many people pass by that not realizing the sacrifice of this particular man, of all these gentlemen who are buried here, of all the other people that have served this country. And it is a day like today that we should certainly pause to remember that these were real people, that they had real families, that they suffered terribly in many, many cases, and that it's only our privilege and our duty to remember what all of them have given to all of us. In that particular battle, Ezra was going to lose his sword, and the family wanted to get that sword back later on, and they had written to the regiment asking how they could get it. Captain Blair wrote, "I could not determine where the sword is and have no hopes of ever recovering it." Interestingly enough, in the recent months, that sword, or one of the swords of Lieutenant Griffin, has turned up in an auction house in California. And the gentleman of the GAR post have been able to raise the funds and have now arranged to get that sword returned to Scranton. Sometime in July, I'm not sure the exact date, that sword is going to be returned to our area, and there's going to be, I'm sure, some kind of ceremony, some kind of event in which we will recall the sacrifices of Lieutenant Griffin and of all the different men who served in the Civil War. I don't know if anybody wants to add that particular incident. Anybody wants to say? I believe the newspapers and the TV station will probably be able to enlighten you on the story of when the sword is returned. But it's a rather remarkable incident that after all of these years, where that sword went, it had been returned to the post in the 1970s, and it disappeared again. How it ended up in an auction house, I believe in California, we're not quite sure, but it's something to look forward to, and hopefully many of you will be able to attend any type of ceremony or any type of event that takes place at that time. Again, thank all of you for coming today. Take a moment, if you can, to remember these people, remember all the people that have served. And I realize there are many veterans here. Let's thank all of them also, not just for the past services, but for all the service that is still being given right at this moment across the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. At this time, I'm going to invite Billy and the ladies auxiliary back up for the presentation of the wreath. Our Junior Vice Commander, Rich Resek, up for the reading of the Gettysburg Address. Fourscore, 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or to detract. The world will little note or long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we are highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Thank you, Rich. At this time, I'm going to invite Mark Myers back up to lead us in the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
In November of 1861, Julia Ward Howe, along with her husband, were on a visit to Washington, D.C. They toured field hospitals and witnessed death and dying. It had an impact on her. At night, staying at the Bullard Hotel, she was woken out of a sound sleep, and only by divine intervention was inspired to write the words that have been here since 1861. On the back of your program are the original words that she had written. We're going to sing this today. I'll lead in with a little bit, and let's share these words, but most of all, when you sing them, pay a close attention and just visualize in your mind the scenes and what she may have seen, and take it with you. Thank you. At this time, may we stand at attention while we have the rifle salute and color guard.
Ready. Hey. Fire. Whoa. Ready. Hey. Fire. Whoa. Ready. Hey. Fire. Shoulder, arm. Going to ask our chaplain, Paul Rogan, to give the benediction.
Gracious God, on this Memorial Day weekend, we remember and give thanks for those who have given their lives in the service of our country. When the need was greatest, they stepped forward and did their duty to defend the freedoms that we enjoy and to win the same for others. Oh God, you yourself have taught us that no love is greater than that which gives itself for another. These honored dead give the most precious gift they had, life itself, for loved ones and neighbors, for comrades and country, and for us. Help us to honor their memory by caring for the family members they have left behind, by ensuring that their wounded comrades are properly cared for, by being watchful caretakers of the freedoms for which they gave their lives, and by demanding that no other young men and women follow them to a soldier's grave, unless the reason is worthy and the cause is just. Holy One, help us to remember that freedom is not free. There are times when its cost, indeed, is dear. Never let us forget those who paid so terrible a price to ensure that freedom would be our legacy. Though their names may fade with the passing of generations, may we never forget what they have done. Help us be worthy of their sacrifice. Oh God, help us to be worthy.
I'd like to thank the Ladies Auxiliary, the members of the 143rd Pennsylvania, and all the members of Camp 8 for helping today. And I would like to thank each of you for coming out and taking part of your day to help us remember those who have come before us, who are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Thank you. The JAR Museum is at the Mall of Steamtown, right next to French Fitness. It is volunteer-led. I'd like to thank all the members of the JAR Memorial Association as well for their time and effort in keeping the museum open, and also for bringing the sword back to Scranton. They did a lot of work, and we all appreciate the work that they did. If you'd like to visit the museum, it is open most days. I don't remember the exact times off the top of my head, but you can ask one of the members here and they'll be able to help you. Again, thank you for coming. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.